Day and night, the lonely Sith Lord tries to find an acolyte. So, welcome back to Acolyte Aftermath, the Acolyte after show of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of ComicBook.com. I'm your host, Kofi Outlaw. With me is ComicBook.com Star Wars expert Jamie Lovett. Thank you for joining us. And if you are joining us right after this latest episode of the Acolyte, episode 5, Night. Whoo! I can't believe we're jumping right into this so fast after watching this. I didn't even get a chance to have a breath, to say some RIPs, and to even process what we're about to talk about. But we are here, so you know we are going to talk about it. This is pretty much your only chance to get a spoiler warning for the Acolyte episodes 1 through 5. We did call it Acolyte Aftermath. We tried to clue you in on the title, but here we are. Spoiler warning, spoiler alert. We are going to be talking about everything that just happened in the episode, in episode 5, Night. If you are just kind of catching this randomly, get out of here now until you've seen the episode and come back and join us. All right, that's all the spoiler warning I got. Jamie, it's been we've done 4 episodes of this. You're the one person I wanted to talk to the most, so thank you for joining me. We both have kids, so I know this is a lot to jump on in the middle, and basically what counts as the twilight hours for us. But I want to know how you are feeling about the Acolyte, since we need to play a little bit of catch up, and how are you feeling about episode 5 specifically?
So the show generally, I've been a little bit middling on. I wrote the review for the site and it was a middling review. I like all the stuff that they were like doing with the Jedi, the weird Jedi stuff, Meditation Man. I love the like Kung Fu style fight scene that kicked the whole thing off. I'm just not hooked on the conspiracy mystery angle. That part's not working for me because it doesn't feel like nobody's investigating this conspiracy. It's just a thing that's happening, and it feels more like they're withholding information from the viewers than it is like it's actually the plot. Like it mostly just feels like I don't know how to feel about a whole lot of things because I don't know exactly how everything went down at that witch coven when the Jedi showed up. And so that's hampering my enjoyment of the show. As for episode 5, this might have actually been my favorite part because it was mostly the thing I like about the show, which is the crazy Jedi action stuff. It felt a little bit like it's almost a weird circuit. It felt like seeing a live action adaptation of a Star Wars video game, because I feel like a lot of the stuff we saw were like skills you could unlock in various Star Wars video games, like throwing the lightsaber, and I feel like that thing where he jams their lightsaber is a thing we've seen before somewhere.
I actually looked it up. I have this. I'm ready. It is Cortosis Weave Armor. Cortosis Weave Armor, one of the most ancient forms of kind of combat armor, which was specifically designed to be resistant to lightsabers. Striking it, it creates an energy feedback loop, which temporarily cuts out the lightsaber. Shout out to everybody at Wikipedia. Thank you for always putting up good stuff and allowing schlubs like me to always be able to check in and kind of pull these references. So that is Cortosis Weave Armor that we saw on the Master, who, spoiler alert, final spoiler alert, guys, we now know is Khmer, like everybody knew it was. So, so here I kind of started out liking the Acolyte. I was kind of in for the first 2 episodes because those 2 episode premiere things can be really iffy in Star Wars TV, like, you know, Obi-Wan, or was it, did we get 2 of Obi-Wan? Yeah. And then Ahsoka, like, yeah, they could get really iffy. So I was kind of sold on a good start. I did not have the mind-splitting I hate the world reaction to episode 3. I never do. I'm never scared by like Star Wars new ideas that they're trying out. Even if I'm like, this is going to probably fall on his face, I'm still going to give it a try.
That was one of the better episodes.
Yeah, I loved that bottle episode. I did this last week with our other like Star Wars expert, Patrick Kavanaugh, and we both kind of criticized the jump from 3 to 4, which I thought was really clunky, because if you're going to do an entire flashback episode, I said that we should be able to get something out of it if we're going back to the present day and 4 didn't give me enough. I thought this one was really well done. I thought that, like you said, the Jedi action, because this is one of the questions that we have like built into our little log line for this live stream is would it deliver on the action? Because that's the thing we all got in. We were all like, okay, people who haven't read the High Republic, I'm a High Republic geek. I've been reading these books, but people who haven't been doing that and are just getting into this for the first time and seeing the show for the first time in this era, the whole selling point is the idea that there are all these Jedi highly skilled and trained and different. And I don't want to use the diverse word and freak out half the viewing audience, but different kinds of Jedi, right? That all have different kinds of skills. And if you read these books and comics, they all have different ideas of how they attune to the Force. And therefore, what kind of, like you said, they're like video game fantasy characters with different skill sets and stuff. And I thought that was well done in this. And I thought, of course, the biggest selling point, the Master Khmer as a Sith Lord and selling that idea, it really did its job. I also think if you don't know kind of Leslye Headland, she has like a good kind of play background, and this felt very much like a teleplay. Like the way it was staged, the way it moved, and the way it kind of played out. I mean, there was substance to all these duels, which is what you want in Star Wars. It was kind of like getting a mix of OT and prequels because it was still a whole lot of ninja stuff with lightsabers, but also the conversations, the development, the kind of things you want out of a good Star Wars duel, especially when we got to the boss rounds, when we took out the red shirts and we got to the boss round. Isn't it nice? We've never even been able to use like a Star Trek reference like red shirts for Jedi that often.
Yeah,
Here we are.
yeah, it's interesting. I liked so the action, the Sith Lord action was very, very cool. I like that they threw in I forget I can't remember his name, Yord or Ford or whatever
Yord.
his name is. Yes, Yord.
The Yord Horde. Yord Horde.
He like him bringing up like that he doesn't obey the rules of combat at first feels a little like, what are you talking about? He's trying to murder you. But then if you think about it for a minute, like if there have been no Sith for this long, all the Jedi have been doing with their lightsabers is either using them as tools to, block blaster bolts or whatever, or dueling each other. They haven't really had a lightsaber duel ever, most of them, not one where anyone's actually trying to kill them. So it makes sense that he would be so like taken aback by like, oh man, this guy's not playing by the rules. This is not a fencing match. This is a he's trying to kill me match. Which makes a lot of sense and makes a lot of sense why he was able to take advantage of the Jedi that way, even though they vastly outnumbered him, to just be like, oh yeah, I've seen that trick. I'm going to go around it. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to murder you. And then I'm going to put 2 of you on my lightsaber at the same time. No problem. This is all nothing to me because I don't play by your rules. It really drove home that I don't care about your rules thing that really seems to drive this character.
Yeah. And I think I hope the show after this encounter and Saul, assuming, he gets back in May, doesn't do something and we get lost along the way. But I hope this show kind of emphasizes this point that at some level they've got to start. Somebody asks, like, what is a Sith Lord or what was this that we saw? Because I get the notion of, them not knowing what Sith is, because in the High Republic, there's not really any talk about that because it's been so long since that war ended and people, and naturally it's, what victor of history doesn't want to try to bury this other thing so people don't go back to it, right? That's like the whole propaganda side of this, is that the Jedi have probably buried the Sith or kind of controlled or quelled any other kind of Force religion that begins to gain too much power for that reason, and not necessarily telling people their other members this stuff is going to be an interesting thing that I hope we definitely delve into. But like, yeah, seeing them have to do this fight, and like even in the older era 100 years before this, they're fighting space pirates and plant monsters. It's not somebody who can equally pick up a lightsaber do this stuff, use the Force in these crazy ways, and really present a combat threat to them. And yeah, I think it's a good way of illustrating the hubris of thinking you're all powerful, right? Like you think your order is the top of the food chain, and then this guy shows up, and suddenly you realize, like, yeah, you're in a fight for your life that you're ill prepared for. Which brings me to the subject of why I'd love, and I can't believe we lost Jackie. Because Jackie, you want to talk about Jedis that don't show fear? Jackie jumped in there as a Padawan every single round and was ready to throw down. And man, I was proud of Jackie. I'm gonna miss, and I hope I'm willing to do that weird Star Wars backstory. It's gonna be a short story. She's just a Padawan, but like
that was a great line too when he complains like she was just a child, and it was like, well, you're the one that drug her here. Like there's shades of Ahsoka in that, you know, remembering that Ahsoka was a child soldier forced to go to war because her religion told her to, basically, right? But it's yeah, but as much as Jackie got some very cool moments in this episode, let's be honest, like her and Yord, they were there to die, right? Like they did not have conflicts. They did not really have, they were part of my problem with the earlier episodes is whenever they were there, it felt like they were just there to deliver the lines that you needed to move from scene 2 to scene 3. Like they had no conflict. There was nothing going on there. They didn't have arcs. They didn't have stories. They were just facilitating other things going on. So sad to see them go, sure, but not at all surprised that they ended up being cannon fodder in the end. I will say I am totally shocked. One of the things that didn't work for me in this episode is Osha's reaction. I don't buy that Osha would have stopped Soul from killing the guy after everything they just saw, especially after he literally just snapped the neck of the Jedi that we can all tell she's got some non-Jedi feelings for, right? Like, I didn't buy that moment. But other than that, I thought that whole fight scene worked very well.
I think that I bought it from Osha because of who she thinks Saul is. And that's the point of that scene. Like, she is still thinking this guy is a noble father figure. And, you know, I mean, it's a thing. I have a son. You have a daughter. I have a son and a daughter. It comes up more with a son, I think. But little boys make you say the sentence as a father, like, please make sure I don't have to go to jail because I have to do something to like protect you or save you from this stupid thing you do. Like if you throw a rock through another man's car or something like that, please don't make me go to jail. So I feel like that was a thing from Osha. It was like, I don't want to see dad do something crazy and violent. And I don't want to see my dad be that guy. And her reaction is that, which I bought. But yeah, I think it's also built in to be a later kind of thematic turn that she sees Saul as this person he is not. And that I have several theories, and we're going to start to get into tinfoil hat theory here. I feel like that's going to be kind of part of the arc of what makes her ultimately the Acolyte, not May. Like it starts out, if you want to talk about obvious turns, whenever you use twins, there's always that bait and switch that the good twin becomes the bad twin becomes the good twin, or they will all switch the whole time. You know, you never know. But yeah, I think that'll be the kind of fall for her is she won't be able to reconcile her father figure being this person like, that she's not. Yeah.
Like the Jedi definitely murdered all those witches, right? It's just a matter of who started the fight that we're all trying to figure out, right? Like they very deliberately only showed you Osha's memories of what happened at that point. Like May didn't start that fire. Like one of the Jedi started the fire or a fight started the fire or something like that. And that's the thing that's been frustrating me about the show is like, if you would just tell me what happened, I would know how I'm supposed to feel about all this stuff. But right now it's like, is he like, how bad is he is the question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no. It's like, that's the kind of the pacing, and it's kind of a trick the pacing of the show has pulled. Admittedly, like it got away in the first 2 episodes with selling us because they were released together on this. We didn't have to know Jackie's conflicts or Yord's conflicts. It was are they cool? Are they endearing? And it worked. Like social media, there was a Yord horde. Jackie had this whole Bowie kind of following, and that was successfully got over the hump. Then they weren't in 3, then they're kind of in 4, and then they're dead by 5, right? So like all you did was have to sell us on they're cool or they're interesting, and that gets us by in the scenes, like you said, to play off these other characters who have arcs, but yeah, it's an interesting kind of overall story pace, and it's this trick of not letting like you said, that you don't know who to easily identify with in this. Like you
Yeah.
have no idea. Like May's killing Jedi, so maybe we don't identify with May, but Yord's kind of a tool, so maybe Jedi aren't the people we're supposed to stick with. And Saul is cool and seems to be this great guy, but we keep getting hints that maybe this isn't true. And yeah, it's very hard to feel. And even about Osha and Osha as a character, I don't think we're on 5, and we've gotten that she's the good twin, and she wanted to be a Jedi, and nothing about what happened, why she really left, what that was about. No profound scenes about that. Nothing like kind of cooking out of there. So
Yeah.
there is a lot coasting on just the mystery. I think you're right about that in terms of narrative. Yeah.
I don't know what exactly this says about the show, but the character I am most interested in is by far the villain, right? Like I am less interested in the mystery of what actually went down at the coven as I am in like so many questions about this Sith guy. Like, is he actually a Sith? Is he part of the same master apprentice lineage that eventually gets us to Palpatine? Or is he some guy that found like a Sith artifact or a Sith holocron or something and decided he's a Sith? Like, so many questions. Like, how long has he been with May? Like, what happened to May? She was quite young when the convent got burned down. Has he been like raising her since then, or did they meet much later? Like, I'm way more interested in whatever is going on with him than in this central mystery that is supposed to be underpinning the show. And I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to be feeling or if that's a miscalculation on the writer's part.
The comments are not with you on this one. Hi, we can see you guys live comments on the live show. They are pointing out that Star Wars is pretty much built on the villain is the most interesting part.
That's fair.
Mantra. Yeah. No, I think I heard on another show. Shout out to the Midnight Boys, other great show besides this one. People, they were honestly asking, like, when's the last time there's been a Jedi that's just been so like badass and iconic that we're just like, ooh, like, we point to that person. I think it might be Mace Windu might be the answer. Like all the way back to Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu being purple lightsaber, strongest Jedi guy.
That's a whole other rant about how like the Jedi aren't supposed to.
Yeah, like, they just don't have the dynamics to be dynamic characters.
The climax of the whole Star Wars saga is Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker deliberately not being the awesome action guy, right? Like he puts
that's a part. We don't want to go down this tunnel because I think that's a whole. That's a Last Jedi rant. That's a whole. Yeah, like their hero is a hero because he never really successfully won a fight. He made a great shot, and other than that, he never really successfully won a fight. And that whole thing, like, but we could get into that whole thing. Look, here's what I say. As a TV show, I think clearly for me at this point, I know that May and Osha are going to be just storytelling objects. I don't feel like we're going to get deep inside them, and I don't necessarily think I want to at this point. Like, I think trying to get more depth out of these two, their big scene that they had been building up to was the scene with them together, and it really didn't do much for me, so I don't necessarily need to keep doing it. The sister aspect. I think there's just what happens with them and the turns of the story and how it affects one or both of them is the main point of this. So, like I said,
brought up the Force dyad question yet? Because I meant to go look and recall exactly how that whole thing works, but like somebody had a light side child and a dark side child. It makes you wonder what they're, did they do that on purpose or what?
Yeah, there's a whole thing about there is in episode 3, which we dissected, pretty deeply. There's a whole kind of the ceremony they go through. May goes through it and gets that mark on her head. Osha never completes it. And it's kind of theorized that would have created a balance and like a balanced dyad between them. But because they never completed it, Osha's the one whose fate is really kind of still up in the air. Like where she lands is kind of the point in all this. Like, yeah, I think she's supposed to be the light side to May's dark side, but there's no balance there. So I think that's going to be the point where we see that flip. Like if something happens to May and Osha kind of has this fall from grace and the Sith wins, even if the Sith dies, because they convert an acolyte. And, we find out Osha's the person who started the chain. And then we get a montage of walking down the hall and different Sith Lords and Darth Plagueis and then Sidious and, all that. Let's talk other theories, because I've maintained that, and there has been some early kind of commentary from Leslye Headland that the rule of 2 is really always a rule of 3, because Sith are always scheming. So it's always like a master, an apprentice, then an apprentice is trying to act like a master and get their own apprentice. So I feel like that's always the kind of pattern we have here. And I think it's true in this one. Like, I think, Kamir is somebody's apprentice and May is his apprentice.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because I can't remember how or where Ruler 2 is established, like in canon versus legend. Like, could Kamir conceivably be the guy that resurrects the Sith like belief system and starts it up again with the rule of 2 again? I can't remember what's canon and what's legend, because it's been a while since I've gone down that rabbit hole. But like, that's why, because he doesn't claim to be a Sith. Technically, he claims that you might as well call him that. So like, how close are we? Like, are you Sith? Are you not? Like, what are we doing here, buddy? They're being very vague,
Yeah, and I always say, like, I always point it out because I've long had a theory about what would also be an interesting turn in this, which is that, when you look at all the Sith apprentices we've been introduced to, they're all henchmen. They're physical, like brutal henchmen. Whether you're in assassins, whether you're talking about Maul, Ventress, Vader, Kylo Ren at first, or pretty much the whole time. Like those are all people who pick up the sword, go use the Force, crush, choke, kill, slice, destroy. Whereas like Sith Lords, the true masters, are the ones who kind of are like Palpatine, like in the shadows,
Dooku being a little bit of an exception, because he's more a politician than an assassin, so to speak, which is why he went and got Ventress, I think. But I get.
I think he was, but that's why I think Palpatine ultimately got rid of him, because he was probably the closest of people to come close to probably getting to that real Sith Lord master level.
Overcorrection after the attack dog vibe he got from Maul, right?
Yeah. And so, like, I think there's still a master here. And I've always kind of held the theory. I know people have held several theories. There's a popular theory that it's Master Indara. And this is because like you said, we've borrowed a lot of tropes from this show. On this show, we're borrowing a lot from things we've seen before. And, a classic noir mystery trope is, that person you thought was dead being still alive and actually the mastermind, the old Saw move for all you 2000s kids. And that could be something that's going on. I've always thought that it would be really interesting if it turned out to be Vernestra Rwoh as the Sith Lord.
I had that thought too, but then I was like, a certain group of people would be so angry about that.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Everybody who read the literature is going to be so mad and knows YA. But I'm thinking, but it's a really interesting story because, you and I have done the High Republic reading and stuff, so we know that there is this point where she fell out with the Order. She left. She became a way seeker. She came back to help defeat the Nihil, but there's this whole chunk of her history for this 100 years from when she's 16 to 116 right now that doesn't have any definition to it.
Yeah,
And
did get
it
some
would
bad
be
vibes from her too, just in
right.
earlier
And
episodes.
because I'm obsessed with my own theories, I've been going back over the episodes. Like last episode, she's the one who tells them, like, no, we're not going to contact the Republic. We're not going to contact the Jedi Council about this. We're not going to do that. And I think it would be interesting because it would be if they make it her, to the average viewer, it's going to be just a Jedi in the Order was a Sith. Oh, that makes sense and resonates with how they eventually were taken out from the inside out.
You know what
To
my
people who
theory
read the
is?
High Republic, it's going to be the story of the most plucky, hopeful, youngest Jedi Knight ever, who lived long enough to, go through that Dark Knight thing. You either die a hero, you live long enough to become the villain, quite literally, and you end up disillusioned and older, and your faith changes, right? And that would be an interesting thing. And if she's revealed, I could see that being, I would almost be more interested in a climactic conversational climax where it's her kind of turning somebody like Osha, being like, I've been where you are. Like, I was with the Jedi. I thought they were my family. And now I found something new. Like, and here, come along with me. And they just walk off together. Because then that's a possible season 2, but you don't have to. You know what I mean? And it's a powerful story about like how the Jedi kind of were defeated by not maintaining their own faith, well enough,
Yeah,
which
a
would be interesting.
very specific like avatar of what really is the whole Jedi story in the macro sense of they really were their own undoing. I am curious, like I am wondering if we are headed towards like Rogue One territory where nobody survives this, and that's why nobody knows that there was a Sith showing up in this time, which is what, he says he does. If you see him, you have to die. So I'm wondering if that's how this ends, is everybody dies, and that's how the Sith remain a secret for another 100 years or however long it is. But I guess we'll see.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think there's a usual suspects ending to this because people have been, first of all, shout out to all the fans who have been like, I can't believe how soft tooth this is. I've seen Leslye Headland's movies before. I thought this would have more edge. Yor got his pretty neck snapped in front of your face, and Jackie caught a 3-hole stab through the abdomen. Like, yeah, people got wiped out in this one. So they even maybe thought that poor little Pip might be. We had a R.I.P. to Pip. He made it. Our two cutest characters are now linked up, which I always love, Basil and Pip. That's a great little short story that we could do.
Got to keep the merchandise alive.
Yeah, but yeah. So, but what was I saying? I got too lost in my own kind of thing here. But yeah, it would be. I would love to see that kind of ending that actually pulls us together, and Leslye Headland having the edge of that, and just being like, yes, and even yes, two of those female characters, even if it's Indara, if it's Vernestra, if it's both of them, whatever, just being like, yeah, we're gonna break and bring back our own thing. Although I'm not looking forward to the discourse if we find out that the Sith was a female-led kind of resurgence against the Jedi. That was eventually co-opted by the skeeviest dude possible.
Oh man, that there.
Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. Oh man, the discourse will be, but we can't control that, man. We can't handle that. I can't handle where this is going to land or what's going to happen. I can say that this episode will probably go down as a high point for many people. I also I'm look. I thought more of you would be more mad about this, but I'm mad. Is Cal Naka? I feel like I got cheated out of Cal Naka. So Star Wars
Oh
better
yeah.
have a whole plans to tell me Cal Naka stories of
They
some
already
kind.
announced the comic book, right?
Oh, did they?
That's something.
Oh
Yeah,
man. Oh,
yeah. There's
okay,
a
okay.
Kalnaka
We good.
comic book coming out. So there
Oh,
you
we
go.
good. Yeah, there we go. We good. All right.
I am interested. I was kind of hoping that this guy turned out to not be a Sith, that he was like some other dark side thing, just because part of the theme of the High Republic is just how many different force based faiths there are, right? And they kept
Yeah.
mentioning like splinter Jedi orders, and we get force switches and stuff like that. So it's interesting, and I wonder if they'll end up like this is part of how it ends, that the force stuff really gets concentrated in these two philosophies. But it's a little weird that like you see Jeddah in the High Republic books and just how many different Force philosophies are represented there, and now it's all been like whittled down to Sith and Jedi. And I wonder if that's a point that they will like hang a hat on before the series is over.
Oh no, I wrote about that, and it was a popular article when the series began because I got the wording wrong a little bit. And shout out to I think it was Robert Garcia. Shout out to fan Robert Garcia who hit me up on the side, or Cheesy Comic Shop, or yeah, I think that is Robert Garcia. Anyway, I got hit up, and a fan kind of corrected my usage of the word, but Indara gets on a comm and says we have an unknown Force user, like when she reports it in, which is an incredibly telling line about how the Jedi have control over this stuff. I said unregistered as if they were like the Mutant Registration Act, but it wasn't that serious. But still, unknown Force user is a big line to say. Like, that means that you keep track of this. Like, you are not letting this kind of spring naturally. And yeah, in the first High Republic books, from, you know, which a lot of this is a callback to, because those witches are like the path of the open hand and their whole view of the Force. And there was an entire, like on Jeddah, like you said, a convocation of the Force, which was like 12 different Force religions. It was like half a dozen to a dozen different Force religions, each with their own different philosophies, where some of them were like, you can only use the Force this way. You can only use the Force this way, like the Jedi, or like the witches or the path. Like, you can't touch the Force at all.
Don't use the Force at all. Yep.
Yeah. Every time you do, you're playing with you're messing with like an actual Force that's going to screw the rest of us. If you save a life by Force pulling somebody who's falling, somebody else is going to die somewhere else where that Force is not helping them or keeping them alive. Like, you don't know the larger scale you're playing on. So it is very telling that by the end of this period, because this is all High Republic, that the end of this era, in the last part of it, like, it has been whittled down to just the Jedi and the Sith, and really just down to the Jedi, because by the time we get to Phantom Menace, yeah, people saying like recognizing or even naming a Sith is a big deal to just about everybody. So there is a big question, and I think that's the part that I'm hoping the show addresses. I feel like episode 3, we've been saying, is a Rashomon episode. And that's the one we're going to go back to and see it again from the different angles. We'll get more Indara, more Mother and Anisea, more Mother Coral, and more of those young Osha and May, but Saul. But I think that's the thing where we'll find out, like, something happens with them. Like, they wouldn't let them take the children, and the Jedi are like, oh no, we're taking these children. Push comes to shove.
Yeah.
And we find out that, like,
I bet that's next episode, actually. I bet the next episode is Soul and May on the ship, and he finally tells her what happened, and whether he knows it's May or not is another story. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what the next episode is.
Yeah. Oh man, which is like, I'm not gonna lie, it's a risky play, because you're gonna be hanging a lot on that one episode again. But I think that it could be something that really puts this all in perspective and makes a turning point. My question is, if you do that, what's that, episode 6? So kind of then what do you get going for 7 and 8? Because that sounds like it get kind of crazy then. Like, how do you bring that plane on in?
Yeah, I feel like that goes back to what I said earlier about nobody is investigating this mystery. Everybody either knows it happens or doesn't know there's a conspiracy at all. So I'm not sure. Like, you would think once we know what the conspiracy is, that the next thing is you have your face-to-face dramatic showdown between whoever discovered it and whoever was hiding it. But like, those roles aren't very clearly filled in this show. So I'm not really sure where you go from there, honestly.
Oh man, well, it's gonna be interesting to see. And if we jump into another flashback, right into a flashback episode next week, I can't wait to hear the discourse on that. R.I.P. to the Yord Horde. R.I.P. to the Jackie crew. Yeah, we lost 2 Jedi. I know Jamie's nonplussed out there, but they had a fandom. They already had like a little fandom, and I'm sure they'll get their own Boba Fett cult followings and all that. We are now going to take a minute and I'm sorry, one of our other podcast hosts, Jamie Gierek of the Comic Book Marvel podcast Phase Zero, is also a big Star Wars fan and sat down with one of the cinematographers of the Acolyte, Chris Teague, and he was talking about what it was like to put together some of these working with the visual effects team to create these kind of fight scenes and capturing the look of the Acolyte while working with, the most Jedi, the most lightsabers. And so we have a portion of him talking about that and the challenge of trying to get cinematography correct when you have the most kind of lightsabers swinging around that we've ever seen.
Bio that you were pulling from the original trilogy. You wanted this to be kind of a practical thing, and of course there was a lot of that, but there is still we've got some VFX characters and everything. How do you find that balance? How do you work? What's your relationship like with the VFX team?
Yeah, we had a great relationship. I mean, I learned so much from working with them, and I feel like our ethos sort of became, as the show went on, we are going to provide as much as we possibly can to you in camera, and that's only going to help improve the visual effects. If they can see some aspect of the frame that we got most of the way there, and then they can just add to it a little bit, or evolve it, or make it feel more, make the space feel a little bigger or more grand or something like that. I mean, that's what they would do, and they were so wonderfully easy to work with. I think my concern was that we would get into situations where if we felt like we had to replace a background, they would ask me to put blue screen behind everything. But they're just really talented and can take an existing set and just modify it, so that, and I think the results are better that way, where you don't have to create something entirely from scratch. You can use a lot of what's there and then just tweak it, basically.
Cool. Is there anything special you have to do to plan for a lightsaber?
I mean, the color is so key. For my end of things, it's really the color that the lightsaber projects, because visual effects is going to replace the saber itself once they get the footage. But we did a ton of testing, and we tested with multiple cameras too. It was one of the first camera tests we did, is how do the sabers look with 3 different camera bodies, and that was a factor in our camera body choice. And how bright can we make it, and what kind of flexibility do we have? But then the other thing you have to weigh against is the more light you add to these sabers, the heavier they get, and your performers need to be working with them and be able to move them very quickly to convey the sense of action and drama on screen. So it was about finding almost like a literal balance of the saber, so that it served our purposes and theirs as well.
Cool. I know we're all waiting for the debut of the whip. Is that a different beast altogether? Or is it kind of a similar?
The whip wasn't my episode, so I wasn't in the room.
Okay.
But the short answer is yes, it's definitely a different beast.
The whip. If you don't know what the whip is referencing, that is Vernestra Rowe, that name I dropped earlier. Her signature lightsaber she constructed is a purple whip.
Sith Master Vernestra Rowe. You heard it here first.
Yeah, and she wasn't in this episode, and so we still got that a little bit of action, because it does, I think, in trailers look like she's using it on a planet that's a lot like Kofar, but yeah, we still got to see that. But thank you for Jamie Gierek for doing that interview for us and sharing that with us. And there's a lot more that Chris Teague has to say about creating the Acolyte and the look of it, and kind of different aspects of working it, and just some insights about how much was VFX, how much of practical set and practical creatures and things that they worked with. So go check out those interviews on comicbook.com. Star Wars. Jamie Lovett, do you have any final thoughts? I know we are in kind of early reactions, and I know the Star Wars community will probably have tons of thoughts and things we don't notice in these immediate reactions, but is there anything you have on your mind? Did you say this is your favorite episode so far?
Yeah, it's probably been my favorite episode. It was a surprisingly short episode, but I guess when it's almost all action, that's kind of where you go. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm very interested in this character. I think, funnily enough, I think knowing that it is Khmer underneath makes the smiley face thing almost makes sense. Like, that fits his personality really well, I think, assuming he built that helmet himself. But yeah, I am really fascinated to see where they go with this now. Like, even if that central conspiracy, I feel like, is not being paced and given out in quite the right way, I am now very invested in finding out what Darth Smiley Face's whole deal is, and where he fits into the Sith canon and lore. I am interested in that.
He's been named Darth Teeth by the fandom. That is
Oh, there we
the
go.
trending
Okay.
name, Darth Teeth. And yes, we hear you guys over on the YouTube page. We are also, I mean, that's a big question. We already said that earlier in the stream that Osha and May already just feel like kind of mobile plot devices to us. And May's motivation is one that is completely lost on me as well. It seemed like she knew Osha was alive. She was going to join the Jedi, but then by the end, she's like, I'm not doing this. And I guess you could explain that by her whole thing is not really about the Jedi, it's about Osha. And then when Osha blasts her, she probably decides that we can't. She's kind of hesitant and like, ooh, maybe this isn't going to work out. And then, yeah, when her sister blasts her and then they try to hug it out and she rejects her, then, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's
Yeah,
pretty
it was.
much the time.
Remind me, I saw the screener for episode 4 weeks ago, but it was Kamir who put it in her May's mind that, like, hey, maybe you don't need this whole revenge thing. Maybe you just want to be with your sister again, right?
No, it's it's kind of I have to go back and watch it now again, but he is walking along and she's like, I can't believe because I remember how cheesy the line is, like, my sister's Jedi scum. But then she's like, well, but how is she? Or what was she like? And he drops it in her ear that she's really still close with Saul. And that's
Mm.
kind of what sets May off to be like, oh no, oh hell no. And then she's like, I think that's the thing where she's like, I'm going to go get my sister. And so in this one, when she tries to reach her and she doesn't, I think, yeah, I don't think she ever was trying to join the Jedi. I think she was trying to turn herself into the Jedi to get to Osha,
Yeah.
and do it that way, and protect herself, obviously, from the Master, which she didn't do a good job of. She's not really doing a great job out here. You got to really, but you know, these Gen Zers, you gotta look over your hiring practices when you're recruiting for acolyte ships out here. You don't want to, these kids will flake on you real quick. They see a vape pen and a phone outside, and they're gone. So
Look, you offer an unpaid acolyte ship, you get what you pay for, right?
yeah, but yeah, no, I don't know. I think, ironically, from starting point of having the whole Ocean May thing be the first surprise of this series, it's been kind of the weaker point. But that's nothing against Amanda Stenberg, who has done a good job of playing these two characters as two characters. I gotta give her that. Like, I do know, I weirdly forget it's her in two roles a lot. I mean, I do think of Ocean May as Ocean May. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing with them as these twins does end up by the end. But all right, well, at least now we can feel probably the best we're ever going to feel about an Acolyte episode. Generally, I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of the episodes, but I'm saying just in terms of all of us as a fandom here being like, it's either still lame as I thought it was, or this episode was bananas nuts is pretty much the best range we get. Because then it just gets to, okay, I hate it, fine, I hate it, it's TV, I hate it, so having this was awesome, and side of things is a nice change of pace. R.I.P. Yord and R.I.P. Jackie. We hardly knew ye, but
Literally,
yeah.
we got nothing out of your characters.
Oh, come on. They're already stop. They're already dead. All right. This is Acolyte Aftermath. We are Comic Book Nation. We are the official podcast of comicbook.com and the only show that does it all for geek culture. And I'm not kidding. We are an entire nation of podcasts. If you're just hopping on our live stream for Acolyte Aftermath, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page and to our podcast on our podcast platforms. This week alone, we have a House of the Dragon Aftermath show that I recorded with our guy Connor Casey. Every Tuesday, we have Anime Initiative, our anime focused show. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I will be joining Matthew Aguilar and one of our other guys, Russ Burlingame, for the poll list where we pull the biggest comics of the week. Thursday is dedicated to gaming with our quick save show, talking about the biggest subjects in gaming. So if you're on your Elder Ring era, or you're talking about, what's that other one? Is it Dragon Age? That's hot right now. Yeah. If you're, we have big shows breaking down both those games. Check that out. And the crew on Quick Save has more good stuff in gaming coming to you. We also did all the Xbox Directs, the Nintendo Directs, all that. And every Friday, we do a live show on Comic Book Nation where we have all our fans jump in. We talk about the entire Geek Week. Yeah. And kind of weigh in on how we feel about things after we've had a little bit more time to process things like the Acolyte, plus all the big news items that we got to fight about over the week. So be sure to subscribe. We do it every week. We're doing it all sides of geek culture. We are Comic Book Nation. This is Acolyte Aftermath. May the force be with you all. Or if the dark side's your thing, you know that too. Or just be a great Jedi like Jamie. Okay? Peace.